Welcome to Nature Aquariums. In today's video, we're going to be doing the Hardscape for our store's 130-gallon display tank. But before we get into the video, please like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and let's get right into the video. One of the things, inspirations that this tank's going to be is Takashi Amano. Some of you may know in the aquascaping scene. He was a large format nature photographer, and what made him interesting is he used large format cameras. So instead of 3/4 film like these cameras are and 35 millimeter, they use full frame, and he went and did a lot of nature photography. He became in love with the juxtaposition of water, animals, fish, and everything related, that he started his own brand in Japan of aquascaping soils and designs. And he is the one why we have to thank today of all these rimless tanks, the glass pipes, everything elevated, and the scape styles that incorporate nature to look like it's a sunken forest or sunken, meadows. And he created a lot of these. He's written multiple books, and early on he created the nature style aquarium. Prior to that, the Europeans did what they called a Dutch style aquarium design, which was like an English garden. Here's your bunch of reds all together, here's your bunch of greens, here's your bunches of this, but there really was no wood or rock work. What he incorporated was bringing in fallen trees and rocks and diversification, and then there's a couple other styles. There's Iwamu, which is a focus of the strength of the stone with carpeting plants, and the style that this tank pays tribute is to his old classic nature style. And the nature style doesn't have everything quite so organized, like this is just the stem plants over here and it's going to blend in a variety of different things. So I did have to bring in the wood and kind of start mocking it up last night. Normally I would put it in, but getting it in through the lights was a pain, and I've been keeping it moist. It's been soaking for a week. So this is Manzanita wood from California that we bring in. One of the things about nature style scapes is they have to tell you a story. The tank has to speak and give you what is the energy, what is the flow. And in this case, I wanted a flow of the stream, the river. It's pushed down whatever forces came in, knocked down, and you see the flow going from left to right. And the best style of photography is when your subject is off-center, right? The old classical, here I'm standing in front of Disney World, to the center doesn't quite work as better as to the side, 3/4 view, a third of the view. And that's what this layout does. It's got 3 pieces of wood that I've kind of joined them together. That's going to be in, to make it look like it was one giant piece. And there will be supporting rock all the way around it. And we're going to put in the plants and everything else shortly. So one of the things that we're right now laying out is going to be the substrate. The other thing that we're doing in this setup is a mixed substrate. We're going to be doing the aqua soil in the back where it's going to be heavily planted, but we're going to have a beach area with sand. The next step in doing this, I'm going to remove these bags. I left them here as a prop, and I'm going to begin the process of putting in the aqua soil where I want it. Step is going to be laying out the hardscape and making sure we're good with that. Okay, so what I'm going to be using here is sponge blocks, and this is to elevate some of the hardscape. The reason I'm doing is I'm going to be elevating this piece of wood a little bit more, and I could have used lava rock, but in this case, this is a newer method, and I wanted to experiment it on this tank. So this is something new that they've started using in the hobby that wasn't around 10 years ago when I was doing this. And I'm an experiment. This is a tank. If it doesn't work well in 6 months, guess what? We'll do another workshop in redoing the 130, right? Because that's what this hobby is about.
I'm always worried about, chipping or breaking the glass with the rocks, sitting on top of it.
Yeah, so, these tanks are very, very strong at the bottom. As long as you don't drop something, they're fine. So nature kind of helped us, and I don't know if you guys can see this, but there is actually a nice little hole made by nature over here. And these two pieces are actually going to go like, it's right, slotted right into there. So thank you, Mother Nature, for when scaping, you want to make sure, especially your backside, that if you can, always leave some room for water flow so you don't have dead spots into your tank. So you don't want to go completely to the point that you can't get any water flow in there. It's always important. So I like saving the bags, and I use them to actually add water to the tank, and you'll see later. So when I cut them, I like cutting them cleanly, because then I'm going to open them up like a newspaper and use them to cover the bottom of the scape and protect the plants while you fill the tank. And these bags are made out of a material that's really nice and tough. Now I'm going to be using two sizes of the contra soil, the normal and the extra fine. The extra fine I'm going to use more as a top off and to put a lot of my dwarf hairgrass and the finer plants. It just helps the roots embed themselves better. One of the, I was working with a customer regarding his scape, and he had a really nice piece of wood. Don't underestimate using your piece of wood as your focal point. It's got to tell a story, and the wood is very natural. Now, yes, you can hide it. Hi, thank you. You can hide it with a lot of the plants, but don't underestimate the power of really using it to tell your story.
Henry, are you looking for the substrate to have different heights?
Yeah, we're gonna go, and this is gonna be my highest side, and it will slope down to this side because we're gonna have sand on this side. And we have some cool plants that we're gonna be putting in. I have some different sources of swords. One, an Argentinian sword, which I found, and you know, my family, one part of my family is from Argentina, so I found it kind of cool that we're gonna have that. So on this scape, we're gonna have pretty much a background of fall plants, and we are gonna have kind of like a stream of plants of crypts growing underneath the branches. Crypts are lower light plants. This is going to be a highlight CO2 tank. So it will be CO2 injected. I know I push a lot for low-tech tanks, and I love them, and they're great. But for something like this that we're using as our main display, I wanted to go on the higher, you know, on the CO2 and higher light. This way I can carry a larger variety of plants for people to actually see them in person. That's a big issue. Most people see them in the, you know, in the holder, but they can't visualize how they're going to look to their potential. So there will be other low-tech tanks that we're going to set up here for you guys to see. But yeah, one of the things is we're going to put the crypts a little bit so they're being shaded, and that way it'll grow like in nature they would, kind of growing in a row. So normally, you know, people try to do the same colored contrast. So this, I've done these tanks with the brown soil. I wanted to do something different. I wanted the red sand with the dark substrate to actually give it a different contrast. And so in nature, you will find obviously soil and dirt underneath a river or a lake is going to be very brown, you know, dark black, you know, the earth colored, and the sands will be light. And I kind of want to contrast, instead of doing the white sand, I wanted a, you know, more of an Amazonian look to the sand. As far as filtration, this tank's going to use two OSA 350s on each side. Short one, that's why these are not connected, but there will be both on each side. So the return is going to be on this side going into the intake. These are reversed, and they're opposite on each side. So this way we'll give it a nice, good flow back and forth.
Is this tank custom made, Henry?
No, this is actually readily available from Planet Aquariums.
Okay.
which I'm a dealer for, and they make these, they make all these, those white new tanks, rim tanks that you see there with the stands, that's all made in Dallas, Texas.
Nice.
So I try to support local, you know, American made wherever possible, and these things swallow up these big tanks,
Yeah.
soil like there's no tomorrow.
Okay, how many bags have you used?
I don't want to count. They don't come free, and just like they cost you guys, it costs us money too. So now to some of the hardscape. So I did not set up the rock work yesterday, but I did clean these rocks. One of the things that I like about this, it's got different colors. It's got shades of blue and copper and greens. One of the things you can do is whenever you set rock like this, grab your soil and get it in between the rock and the wood, because that's where you're going to be planting a lot of your plants, to give it in between. So you kind of use this like a retaining wall between your piece of wood, and then that's where the fine bags of aqua soil, and it'll go into all the nooks and crannies a lot better, and then you can plant with your tweezers. And eventually the roots will work themselves between the rock and the wood, and it's going to start keeping everything nice and tight. Now I like some of these longer stones because I like making little hides for plecos and, you know, a lot of the fish. And it's easy to do it with these longer pieces, and there's plenty of it there if you want to. The other thing you want to take into consideration is when you're setting up your scape, how many sides are going to be visible? Is it just going to be the front? Is it going to be both sides? In this case, this is a pretty deep tank, so I have to make sure I take care of both sides so that it doesn't look like, what happened? That's only the TV side. The other thing is, and this was what I wanted to say, I've seen some scapes that you have beautiful pieces of wood, but they're cut off with a saw, the ends. And it kills the scape in my view. I was watching this on YouTube. There was this really nice scape, beautiful piece of wood, and there was something wrong about it. Miriam and I, this is what we do. Instead of watching like the news or something, we go and watch aquarium stuff, right, on the TV while we're eating. And what was detracting was that the piece had all these auxiliaries cut off with a saw. This is not natural here. See, and you have those pieces. So I kind of want to hide that because that is where the magic. If now I cover it up, it looks like that was one giant piece that I brought it in. But what I didn't want, so the detraction of where you kind of put the different pieces, because your eye is going to fool you. These pieces all came from 3 different trees. So the graining is different, the coloration is different. If I kind of cover that where it all blends together, you won't be able to tell that it came from a different tree. And that's kind of the point. And that's where some of the scapes don't look right. And that's something that Takashi Amano was really good at doing. He would go and hide all the pieces he would put together so you'd never see the ends. And here, what I liked about these were all naturally broken. There's not a single sawed-off piece. You and I can deal with the broken piece. Oh, nature, a wind, a storm, you know, it broke and fell. You can't deal, oh, man went and cut that thing. It killed the magic. It's like going to Disney World and seeing Mickey Mouse smoking a cigarette, you know, taking a break. Right? So I want to make sure we don't see Mickey Mouse smoking and taking a break. Let me find a couple small pieces and kind of throw them in there.
Exactly.
But see, you guys, the perspective, you can actually see straight across. I'm looking at it from here.
I mean,
The anxiety. I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to do this.
Yeah, you can. Listen, we all,
I don't know. I thought of that. I was just like, something's wrong. Don't know what it is.
but you know, it's years and years of doing this and watching and listening. The biggest thing is watch a lot of other stuff and see what sticks out to you. Like my pet peeve of the cut off branches. Yours of saying, hey, you know what? I really like that natural piece and I'm missing of it. So all those things collectively is how we get, you know, we see what looks good. It's like studying architecture. right? You see a whole bunch of different buildings, or looking at car designs. Oh, this one, I really like the way they finished the tail lights, but on this one, something bugs me about it. But I'm gonna save these until I start putting some more plants. One of the things I brought, and I'm gonna experiment with, are using this natural gravel as an accent gravel. So instead of laying it, I'm just gonna take it and sprinkle the transition between going through the sand and the stone, but I'm not gonna do it until I plant it.
Right.
And then that way, it's not gonna be such a harsh line, and I'll probably end up like scooting some of this, you know, from the line and making that gradient and transparency. So that's why I like these small bags, because you don't need a 20-pound bag of this stuff. You're only using a small amount and sprinkling it and doing it.
What color is that?
This one is, I don't know what it's called. It's called Beach Pebble. And it's a gray pebble, and then I brought out these, which are mixed, 2 different types. And I'm just gonna grab handfuls and kind of mix them, because you are gonna get different, you know, rocks from going from one style to the other. The appeal to planted tanks is, I don't like this 6 months from now. You can rearrange it, you can move it. The plants will actually, most of the plants you can salvage, trim the roots, trim the leaves, replant them, you know, put in fertilizer, and it can go. The rock you can use, the wood you can use, you can add a couple more pieces, and the tanks are always evolving. But thanks for watching, and that's it for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out the planting of the 130-gallon display tank at Nature Aquariums.